Jackie's calling in from Tennessee, pronouns are he, him. How can I find peace after being indoctrinated into a religion I don't know that I believe? What if I'm wrong and go to hell? Hey, Jackie, how are you? You're on with Promise and me.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing all right.
Not too bad. What's going on?
I've always just kind of been on the fence when it comes to whether there's a God or not, because, I mean, I've looked at the research and a lot of it doesn't make any sense. But I was so heavily indoctrinated that the fear of hell still gets to me. And like I said, like, I've always just kind of pushed it off, and like, not to get too personal, but I have a disease that's probably going to kill me within a few months. So I can't put it off any longer. So I'm just wondering, like, how do I find peace, with like not going to hell, because I'm terrified of it.
Which hell?
Specifically the Christian one, because that's one I was raised to believe in.
Okay. What if you were raised to believe in the wrong hell and there's another hell that you're going to go to because you bought into this one?
I mean, it's a possibility.
Well, I mean, I think you're dealing with, hey, this is the hell I was taught to be afraid of. What if I were to tell you about 3 other hells that you should be afraid of? Now you're in a position where you've heard about 4 hells. You have no reason to believe any of them are real. Are you afraid of all 4 of them?
I suppose not.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be glib at all, Jackie. I'm empathetic to your situation. I hear from people all the time. I didn't really suffer that much with this. I never really lived with a fear of hell. Hell was just a reality that I had already avoided by accepting Jesus into my heart when I was 5. So,
I
don't know. Yeah, go ahead, Promise, because I want to find out how I can find
terrified. I was so terrified of hell, and of course, I was told over and over again, "Well, you're saved, so you shouldn't be." But I was still so concerned. Ironically, what if something happens and it makes me doubt my faith, and then I become an atheist, and then I'm going to hell? I was like preemptively worrying. I also had anxiety and a form of OCD that centers around religious ideas, and so I totally relate to that fear. I don't suffer from it anymore, but part of, I don't know what exactly would work for you, Jackie, but part of what worked for me to at least feel at peace with questioning whether there was a hell or not, and that's where I finally got some answers that made me feel significantly better, is I asked myself, well, if the God I believe in is supposedly all loving, all powerful, and all knowing, then that God would know my heart and would know that I'm genuinely trying to figure out what's true or not, and that God would not and would have the ability to not send me to hell, or however you want to word that, based on me just being genuine and honest in my search. And so that really gave me enough security to move forward from there. Started researching, even just the theology around hell, and realized how shaky it is and how it's not based on much as far as knowing exactly what hell I should be afraid of and what it would be like and all of that. And then I finally reached the conclusion where I have no reason to believe a hell exists, not any more than I do any other afterlife that somebody could make up and popularize and make it sound really scary, so that I feel like this impending doom if I don't believe and figure out what to do to avoid it. So it might help you to start there. Also, if you haven't heard of them, Recovering from Religion, they have their website, recoveringfromreligion.org. They have a helpline where you can have a whole conversation with somebody and kind of go back and forth on this as well. They specifically talk to people who have fear of hell. But I'm so sorry that you're having to think about that and live with that fear. I know a lot of people that even once they intellectually move past the idea that a hell exists, that fear can live in your body. That's part of indoctrination. And I think acknowledging it is a big step forward.
Okay.
Is there a specific part that has you that you really can't get out of your head, like a specific question, or is it just this generalized fear?
It's just a generalized fear, I guess. like I said, it's not logical, but I mean, emotionally, it's still really keeping me from having peace. And that's all I want at this point in my life, is just a little bit of peace.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I would feel the same. I really recommend Recovering from Religion. What's cool about them as well is because they have where you can call somebody, or you can do even like a messenger chat. And so you don't have to just have this one conversation. You can talk about like, hey, right now I'm just like not feeling at peace about this and need somebody to talk to about it. And they'll help you out with that, because I do think it's a process. And as you said, you may not have much time. And so to be able to have somebody to maybe talk with, you know, as something comes up, might benefit you best.
Okay.
Jackie, I'm gonna echo that. Not only are we getting ready to do another fundraiser for Recovering from Religion, it's genuinely one of the finest and most helpful organizations I'm aware of for people struggling with issues like this. They're not going to try to make you an atheist or not. They also are tied to the Secular Therapy Project, and that will get you counselors that aren't going to try to, use religion as a counseling tool, but are just going to deal with who you are from a scientific perspective, and go with reliable methods for helping you deal with anxiety, depression, all of the things associated with this. I will say those are probably the best options that I could think of for other people to reach out to. But give yourself permission to be occasionally terrified. What if I'm wrong? Nothing wrong with thinking, what if I'm wrong? But when you do so, also take a second and say, yeah, but what if I'm wrong about whether I'm wrong? And what if I'm wrong about which hell I'm avoiding? And what if I'm wrong about this? And the number of times that all of us could just sit here and say, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? That could lead to a complete catatonic state where you can't make any decision, because you're never going to be supremely confident that you're not wrong about stuff. And for me, one of the biggest realizations is, if there is a God, and that God is looking down and seeing you as someone who's looking at the possibility of not continuing to live for various reasons, and is struggling with ideas of heaven and hell and religion, and that God is doing absolutely nothing to ease your anxieties and fears, what's more likely, that God is corrupt and evil and should be ignored, or does not exist and should therefore be ignored, or that they love you but they're just too busy to let you know which hell to avoid and how to do it? I know what I think is more probable. This was in part something that was done to you, this particular indoctrination. I like to put the responsibility back on God's shoulders. If there's a God there and he knows my heart, as Promise was talking about, if he cares about me, he can show up anytime and fix this. After I just did a vicious, Christianity smackdown a little while ago, God could show up right now and say, hey, I heard what you said, and I still love you, and you got some of it wrong, and I'd like to explain this to you. Why doesn't that ever happen? Ever. I think you're at a point where you are recognizing that this is something that is less prone to certainty than any of our daily views, which are also not subject to certainty. I don't know anything. I don't know the sun's going to come up with absolute certainty tomorrow. I'm supremely confident that the sun will rise in the morning, but I could be wrong. But you're looking at things like afterlives, where it's not even just a guess. It is a parade of miscellaneous speculations that offer nothing of use and only get used as carrot and stick to control people's thoughts. I hope you find the peace you're looking for. I definitely would recommend talking to Recovering from Religion, and to cut yourself some slack and make sure that you're being fair every time you, but what if I'm wrong? Ask yourself that question about other things too.
Yeah, I've had similar thoughts too. Like, God has all these moral absolutes of like, do not kill, don't do this, and then he tells his followers to do it. And like, I don't know, like sometimes I think, well, God has more sins on him than I do. I mean, I didn't flood the whole earth.
Yeah. And I don't think you could, even if you wanted to.
Definitely not.
But also, I don't think God could either.
Right. It's definitely not a reliable narrator, and doesn't really give good reasons to believe that any of those threats are true. And I think back to what Matt originally asked you, why aren't you afraid of any other afterlives, or like afterlife claims? I would dig into that a bit more too, and really ask yourself, go research some other afterlife claim. Okay, why does this one not bother me? It is because there's a trauma there, an indoctrination there of when you've been told to be afraid of something so many times, that can stick around, like you said, even when it logically doesn't make sense. And that might help you get to the root of finding the path to how you figure out if something is true or not and worth being afraid of. Because clearly there's all kinds of other things that you're not afraid of and you are at peace about. And maybe figure out how your brain reached those conclusions enough to feel peace about those claims. And it might help you here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess I'll start with Recovering from Religion then. Thanks for taking my call.
Absolutely.
And thanks so much, Jackie.
I hope you both have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
You too. Wishing all the best for you.
Thank you.
I will do everything I can to try to make sure that we have a wonderful night.
Thank you for watching that clip. If you enjoyed it, perhaps you should join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
At patreon.com/calltheline.